Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is such a nice day out here today, and so I decided to sit out on my patio and just enjoy the nice weather. And I know I haven't been out here in a while for a video, but again, I decided to just sit out and enjoy the nice breeze that's coming through today. But today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I incorporated into my treatment plan when I was going through chemotherapy that I believe was beneficial. And I think that it may be helpful to someone else out there just to know about it and to know how, it affected me when I did it. And so let me just start by saying this. When you get a cancer diagnosis, between Google, the doctors, your family, friends, other survivors, social media, you'll quickly find yourself in information overload. Like there is so much to process and so much that you're trying to familiarize yourself with during that time that it's just you're overwhelmed with, everything that comes with it. And so it can be things like, what to eat, what not to eat. It can be things like, what supplements to take, what supplements to not take, what you should do in terms of, exercise. And it's just so much information. For the most part, honestly, you want to be careful in terms of, what information you decide to take on and move forward with. Everyone will, mean you well, but again, it's so much information. And, in terms of things like supplements and, different diets and things like that, you do want to be careful because you don't want to start something that may interfere or counteract your treatment plan, especially if chemotherapy is part of your treatment plan. So, although it's a lot of information and it's overwhelming, there will be information that you want to take from it because you think that it's beneficial for you. Just, make sure you research and, have a clear understanding of what it is and how it affects what the modern Western civilization medication, how that may react and respond to your body. Make sure that nothing counteracts or interferes with the treatment plan that you have agreed upon with your providers. As for me personally, I too found myself in information overload, and I was very careful with what information I held on to. So there were a lot of recommendations. One recommendation that made perfect sense to me was fasting. And so you're probably wondering, if you're not familiar with fasting, well, what is fasting? And so fasting is basically when you make a conscious decision to fast. You basically have decided to abstain from something for a period of time. There are many, many different types of fast. People do it for various reasons. A person may fast because of their spiritual beliefs. They may be fasting for their culture. They may be fasting for medical reasons. It may be something that they incorporated in their lifestyle, like intermittent fasting. People fast for various different reasons. And so one type of fast that particularly was recommended to me was water fasting. With water fasting, we are not abstaining from water. We're actually making a conscious decision to only consume water for a certain period of time. And so, there's many benefits to, like I said, to fasting and water fasting. And so when it was brought to my attention, I wasn't unfamiliar with fasting. I just didn't know how it could help with my treatment plan and, what my journey was going to entail at that moment. So the type of fasting that I chose to do specifically was water fasting. This information came from another survivor who incorporated water fasting into her journey, into her cancer plan at the time. And she was completely open about it in terms of, letting me know that at the time when she made the decision to do it, during her diagnosis, this was back in 2017, there wasn't a lot of research out about it. She didn't have a lot of information on it. The only studies at that time were studies that were conducted on mice. Yet the information was so meaningful to her that she thought that, it was something that she wanted to incorporate into her life, into her journey. Now, once we fast forward to when I received my diagnosis in 2022, there were lots of research studies out there that were now conducted with people, with humans. And so, I was able to then educate myself about how water fasting could help support me as I embarked on the journey with chemotherapy. And, it was a lot of studies that were conducted on women specifically who had been going through breast cancer as well. So again, there was, information, and basically it showed that, like there was one study in particular that was, I think, dated in 2020 that showed that the fasting group actually had like less delays, less modifications in their treatment plan than the group that decided to not fast. It also showed an improvement in the overall quality of life because, ultimately people were experiencing milder side effects, less side effects or milder side effects. Some other studies have seen that it actually slows the growth of tumors and essentially allows the chemo to target the cancer cells specifically. By placing your body in almost in a starvation mode, so to speak, basically shuts down your healthy cells and put them in the healthy cells go into a protective dormant state. And so essentially what the research was showing is that when you put those cells in that protective dormant state, then it helps to protect them from the overall damages of the chemotherapy. Because we know that, the chemotherapy, that's systemic, and so it affects everything. So the bad cancer cells and the healthy thriving cells. And so by fasting, it's able to, like I said, put the good cells in a dormant state, and it's believed that kind of gives them some type of protection. So then it goes into where you don't have, like I said, as many delays and modifications of treatments, because when they are looking at like the chemistry of how your body is doing, your body ultimately is probably performing really well considering that you're on chemotherapy. Now, I had some resistance from some family members and friends when I would tell them that I made the decision to fast before my treatments. And a lot of it was just because, they didn't understand the benefits of it. They saw, what they had in their mind in terms of chemotherapy with, people being malnourished and losing weight, and just, kind of got into a fearful state that, well, if you're going to fast, then you're putting yourself in a state of, being even more small. You're going to lose more weight and things like that. And so it took a while. They were uneasy about my decision, and it took a while for them to get on board. But they did get on board. But yeah, they did get on board. They got on board soon, mainly because, one, they saw that I was basically going to do it anyway. And then two, as I was going through it, they were able to see that it really didn't have a negative effect on me. And so that reassured them as well. Physically, I felt fine. There was no weakness or anything associated with that. If we look at the physiology of things and, chemically how my labs were doing, like I said, overall, at all of my visits, when they would draw my lab, they look at it and say it looked, pretty good considering that you're on chemotherapy. Of course, there were some deviations in, what was normal, and, kind of dip down into, a critical lab value. But considering that you're on chemo, I was within a stable period for a while. One specifically area that they looked at, or that they look at, is called your neutrophils. And so these are basically the cells that, like, fight when they're exposed to, infection or viruses, a foreign invader. And so with chemotherapy, it kind of wipes them out a little bit. And so they don't want neutrophils to be too low, because then that makes you more susceptible to some other type of infection. And, that causes more problems, right? And so although mine, they trended down as the weeks went on, and I continued from cycle 1 to cycle 2 to cycle 3, they trended down. For the most part, they were pretty steady. Now, with the exception, there was one time I did have to miss a cycle, missed not a cycle, but missed a treatment that was part of a cycle. So it would have been cycle 3, and I think it was like dose 3 of that cycle, because with Taxol I was going every week for like 3 weeks, and then you were off for a week. And so with that, it was around the time when my daughter turned a year old, and we were celebrating her birthday. I had a friend who had turned 40, and we were celebrating with them as well. And so I wasn't fasting. I had gotten off of my regimen and didn't do what I normally would do to prepare my body for treatment. And so that would be the particular time where I went in after that. So my baby turned a year old on the 17th of May. And so my appointment was following that. And so when I went in, they did my labs, and unfortunately, my neutrophils were very, very low for that particular visit. And I had to miss that treatment and reschedule it for the following week. Now, with that being said, I went into, the following week after, getting over being upset and all of that. And I had a video about that. So somewhere back in the list of videos, there is a video about that specific one where I share how I felt and all of that. But after I got over how I was feeling, I, basically got back to doing what I was doing. And so I did my normal prep for my treatments like I normally would as I approached a new rescheduled date, and went in, and my labs were good, and I got my treatment. And that is the only time where I experienced the delay. And so naturally, given the results of the studies that I researched, I knew, or I felt, that my delay was because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Now, whether or not we know if that was the case, we'll never know. However, knowing what I knew at that time, that's what I believed. And so as we progressed into the next cycle, and as I moved forward into phase B, I continued my same regimen of fasting prior to my treatment. I didn't. So while I was fasting, you may be wondering, well, what other side effects did you experience? And so again, I didn't. And so I didn't experience like side effects from the chemotherapy. So my side effects were mild. Like I had the hair loss, I had skin discoloration, things like that. But in terms of nausea, vomiting, and the images that we see of cancer that really has people down and out, I didn't experience that. I didn't have any significant weight loss. In fact, I actually gained weight. It's probably because of the steroids, but again, I didn't lose any, so that wasn't an area of concern. Now, I do plan to share all the specifics of my fasting regimen, the water fasting regimen that I chose to do, that I felt like worked for me. I will share that in another video, so be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, I'm curious to know, like, has anyone else done this? Have you done water fasting during your chemotherapy journey, your cancer journey? If so, how did it make you feel? What were your experiences with it? I'd love to hear more down in the comments. Feel free to comment and share your experience with it. If you haven't done it, let me know if you're interested in it. I'd like to know if that's something you would like to know more of. I am going to include the articles that I found so that you can have time to research it on your own as well. But definitely, look up water fasting and the benefits of water fasting while you're going through chemotherapy, and see if it may be an option for you. In addition to that, you need to speak with your doctor. If you have never done this before, if you've never fasted before, that's a whole nother mental discipline that you're going to have to get. But that aside, if you've never fasted and you do have any other type of like chronic conditions, whether it be diabetes, high blood pressure, and you're going through chemotherapy and cancer treatment, you definitely need to speak with your provider first before you just outright decide to do a water only fast. Because again, those who may be on medications for other things, you don't want to not eat if you're diabetic and then you're taking your diabetes medicine and then your blood sugar bottoms out. Same thing goes with like your blood pressure. Your blood pressure, if it's related to your diet, heavily related to your diet, then once you cut out sodium consumption and things that may spike it, and you're still taking your blood pressure medicine, you may notice like it drops and that bottoms out. So again, I do recommend, if it's something that you're interested in, that you speak with your provider first, so that you have someone on your team that can kind of help monitor you and help guide you in the process in terms of how it is affecting you. Again, if you have some areas that you're taking other medications for. All right, so that's all I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, definitely do that. Like I said, comment, share if it's something that you've done or somebody else that's done it. I'd love to hear more about it, and then be on the lookout for the next video. All right, thanks, guys.